Assassin's Creed as a franchise has gone through different iterations that have redefined what it is to be an Assassin's Creed game. And one of the main things that we've seen vary across the years is placing your games and your protagonists in either very compact, dense urban cities or really wide, sprawling, vast environments. It's interesting to debate which one of the two fits Assassin's Creed the most. Just to spoil it before this video gets on the way, it's urban cities. Assassin's Creed 100% deserves to be and should be within dense, vertical urban cities. However, I don't think the answer stops there. I do think there is a place for a wide, vast landscape that you can explore. I do think there is a place for Assassin's Creed to be set within an entire country instead of just a city. However, I don't think that the last three RPG games, Assassin's Creed Origins, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and AC Valhalla, are the right formulation of that balance. The reason why is because negative space in video games, more specifically negative space in Assassin's Creed, serve as a place of introspection for a player. If you're a true Assassin's Creed fan and you've delved into it more than you probably should, analyzing this franchise, you realize that Assassin's Creed is actually a very philosophical game. It deals with a lot of really interesting themes about free will and power, control, mortality, violence, death, and freedom. And what you learn is that your favorite protagonists, Altair, Ezio, Edward, Bayek, all spent vast amounts of time by themselves, thinking, reflecting, and coming to conclusions on their own experiences and their own lives. It's one of the best parts of Assassin's Creed as a narrative, and when you see the best moments of the Assassin's Creed franchise, like the Revelation speech or Edward's maturity at the end of the game, Bayek's acceptance of his lost son and moving that energy into forging a brotherhood, all these moments come not from the cool action sequences or the cool parkour, but rather the quiet, introspective moments where characters reach a profound conclusion on their own lives. The times that I've had these realizations as a player are not when I'm running around in a really dense city, thinking about the next 6 inputs in my parkour chain, but rather when I was wandering along the endless sands of Assassin's Creed Origins, or sailing the seas in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, or even riding through the English countryside in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Negative space is an addition to Assassin's Creed that the franchise really needed moving forward. However, it was not met with sufficiently dense, interesting, or vertical cities in the ancient trilogy. An ideal game for me would be an Assassin's Creed game that doesn't only go back to the compact, claustrophobic city. I don't want another Assassin's Creed Unity. I don't want another Assassin's Creed 2. Yes, these cities are my favorites in the franchise, but now that we have that technology to move past that and give more space to the Assassin's character, having dense cities surrounded by these vast landscapes of negative space where you can stroll around on a horse as a hooded man thinking of his own thoughts and his own life would be the ideal combination of both large open worlds and dense cities. I don't want parkour to go away. In fact, I want it to come back and be way more complex, but I don't want that at the cost of being able to hop on a horse and ride for hours on end in-game, because I think it adds so much to what honestly all of the Assassins have gone through. Imagine that we got a remake from Assassin's Creed 1 and you were given the choice to have just the 3 cities, Damascus, Jerusalem, and Acre, without the kingdom, or you could have those 3 cities and a redefined kingdom that resembles the open spaces in AC Origins. I know that most of you would want to pick the latter option, because having to ride through the kingdom into these cities was part of Altair's journey. It's what made his voyage so epic and so deep, and that allowed you to connect with him, because every time that Al-Mualim gave you a new target, you had to go through these dangerous, barren lands on your way to the actual city. So when you arrived, you actually felt a sigh of relief that you reached civilization, but also tensed up knowing that now the real work began. Traveling through negative space, traveling through barren land, is a wonderful way to give the player a nice sense of pacing where you have time to reflect on the things you've learned from the narrative, reflect on what it is to be an assassin and the assassin's philosophy, and gear up for an intense, fast-paced, claustrophobic sequence of events in the cities. And if we apply this hypothetical of what you would want in your ideal AC1 remake into the future Assassin's Creeds, you see that even though everyone's clamoring for dense cities, what we really want is dense cities surrounded by really empty but meaningful negative space. And focus on the word meaningful, because AC Odyssey was a complete failure, as well as AC Valhalla, in terms of generating negative space. Because even though it was very pretty to look at, even though it was very large and you could ride around it for hours, it wasn't meaningful. The music, the sound design, the level design, the landmarks weren't there for you to feel like you were in an actual breathing, living world. And this is something that somehow AC Origins managed to capture perfectly. And if you don't believe me, I want you to boot up the 3 games in a sequence. First, start with AC Valhalla. Run around for a few minutes in the empty countryside. Then move to AC Odyssey and see how beautiful all the colors look, but how lifeless everything feels. And then I want you to boot up AC Origins. Walk in the deserts and hear the music layer into your ears softly as Bayek suffers from a heat stroke or leaves his footprints in the sand. See how when you ride your horse through the oasis into civilization, you actually feel like you're in a living world. This is the level of quality that we deserve in Assassin's Creed games, and this is the type of environment we want surrounding our dense cities. The one qualm I had with AC Origins open world design was that the cities of Alexandria and of Cyrene weren't quite as dense and as vertical as I would have wanted them. And of course I understand that because of historical accuracy, they needed to be this way. But moving forward, if we had more modern age Assassin's Creed games, like for example AC Red that's coming up, I'm hoping that the cities in that game are vertical, are dense, and are friendly to complex player agent parkour. Mirage is an example of a perfect balance between a wide open space and a city. The only problem is that there is no incentive to go into the open space because it's only set in one city. You're not traveling anywhere. You're just traveling between the boroughs of Damascus. However, if you have an AC game that's much larger scale because the developers are given a much larger budget, like AC Red that's going to be set in a whole country, then the negative space makes sense. And you want Mirage basically as the blueprint of what to double or triple in size when you're making a whole country. You want cities like Damascus, maybe 3 or 4, surrounded by a desert. It doesn't have to be a desert of sand. It can be a countryside in the case of Japan, or it can be water. But whatever it is, it has to be large amounts of space that gives you time to sink into the Assassin fantasy, both in the negative and the positive. So when you talk about your ideal Assassin's Creed game, I'm on your side that I want dense cities. But remember the caveat that you probably also want huge negative space to travel in between, just like AC1, just like Mirage, and to a certain extent, just like Origins. And I think that this cycle of going through empty space into crowded cities back and forth really feeds into the idea of narrative through gaming. That when you're playing a game, you are not only experiencing a story through the dialogue and missions, but rather through your own gameplay, your own self-expression, and the open world that is presented before you. And if you want to hear me dive into this idea of storytelling in multiple forms within video games, you can watch this video now.